Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So, good morning, everyone. It is 10:32 now this morning, and we'll go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the public hearing for the 2027 Qualified Allocation Plan, or the QAP. You may hear me throughout the rest of this presentation today refer to the acronym of the QAP. So, my name is Deanne Ingstrom. I am the Director of Housing Development, and I am joined today by the Housing Development team, including Terry Bradshaw, John Husky Davies, Scott Jessup, and Madison Slater, as well as other KHRC staff. As part of the QAP process, we are providing an opportunity for stakeholders and members of the public to review the proposed changes and provide comments. Today, we'll provide an overview of the proposed changes, and then we'll open up the hearing to public comment. As we begin, I'd like to note that this hearing is intended for public participation. This meeting is being recorded and it is transcribed by KHRC. We ask that AI note takers, any recording tools, or other automated attendees not participate in the hearing. If you would like to provide your comment verbally, please let us know in the chat at the end, and we will call on you when it's your turn. And you may also submit your comment in the chat box. Following today's written comments will continue to be accepted through 5 p.m. on September 2nd, and those can be submitted at housingdevelopment@kshousingcorp.org. The QAP was released last month in July, and after today's public hearing, we'll once again continue to accept public comments through September 2nd. KHRC will gather those comments and respond accordingly and hopes to issue the final 2027 QAP by early October 2026. Now I will go through a summary of the proposed changes for the 2027 QAP. In general, there are consistent updates to the applicable dates, such as application deadlines, award announcements, place and service times, and other areas. You will see throughout the QAP that there has been adjustments for formatting and spacing, just with the intention to make the QAP easy to read and provide clarity. When looking specifically at the 9% low-income housing tax credit limits, and you may hear me refer to that as LIHTC moving forward throughout this presentation, the QAP provides additional language to clarify that if additional LIHTCs remain after the award of all 8.8 million Kansas affordable housing tax credits, KHRC reserves the right to fund and award a development with federal LIHTCs only. When looking at selection criteria for new construction, with our guiding principle to distribute resources fairly across the state, the previously titled underdeserved area category within new construction will now be titled distribution of resources. When looking at below market loans and support, we are proposing to add a 15-year term in addition to the existing bullet points that already remain in the QAP, such as an interest rate no more than 1%, amortization of at least 20 years, and no unreasonable fees. We'll also continue to provide clarify and strengthen language in the amenities as it relates to proximity, shopping, and grocery. And we're also proposing stronger language for principals to disclose not only past and present litigation, but also claims and assessments involving the applicant and/or principals. In post-award and compliance, we've also edited the documentation list to include a declaration of restricted covenants and a replacement reserve guarantee, while also removing the assignment of rents and leases. We'd also like to clarify that there has been a rescission of the adoption of energy efficiency standards effective May 1st. The QAP will now follow the 2018 IECC energy standards. When looking at Appendix C for design requirements, we'd like to clarify that vinyl siding is not allowed. Rehabilitation projects should default to new construction standards and materials if the work there and the project falls outside historic eligibility. We're making proposed adjustments to interior and exterior storage space specs. And we're proposing to remove the bullet point that kitchen ranges can be no higher than 34 inches above the floor. That is a summary of the proposed changes for the 2027 QAP. And at this point, we would like to open the hearing for public comment. If there's any questions or comments, those can be added to the chat, or you can make a chat that you would like to speak publicly, and we'll unmute you. At this time, it is open for comment. Kelsey, yes, I see you. Kelsey would like to speak on behalf of KHA. Kelsey, do you have the ability to unmute yourself and speak?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. We just wanted, KHA just had a meeting that we came up with some comments that we would like to present to you all. I do have page numbers of our comments, but it is from the red line. So just in case they're not lining up with what you have. Our first comment is for page 7. It was the 9% LIHTC limits and set-asides. KHA supports the ability for you guys utilizing the federal LIHTC after the state has been exhausted. However, with the absence of some matching LIHTC, could we maybe have, if it would affect the project's feasibility, let's say we come in and we're asking for state and federal, you have no more state credits, and we have to go back to our syndicators. Is that something that we could maybe know ahead of time? We are fearful that maybe we will not, and anyone from KHA that maybe wants to jump into is welcome. But we're worried that if we go back to our syndicator and they don't have the availability to just fund us on the federal, is that something we can know maybe ahead of time? Or knowing that you may run out of state credits, is there a possibility for us to just apply for federal credits?
Yeah, thank you, Kelsey. We'll make note of that comment and respond accordingly.
Perfect. I have a couple more if you
Go,
guys
yeah.
are willing to
Yeah, go
deal with
ahead.
me for a few more
Yes,
minutes.
go
Okay.
for it.
The threshold eligibility, it's on page 12 of the red line. KHA supports the need to evaluate the financial capacity and stability of principals. However, we're requesting some clarification regarding the requirement to disclose any past or pending litigation claims. Given that that's a broad definition of a principal and maybe an unlimited look back, we're a little nervous that it could create some unnecessary administrative burdens and may not accurately reflect the principal's financial capacity. So we just wondered if there was any way that this can maybe just get clarified a little bit. Obviously, none of us are going to be withholding or not disclosing things that you all are requesting. We would just recommend maybe a reasonable look back period, such as maybe 5 years, and then also distinguish pending versus disputed claims. If you guys would just take that into consideration too.
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. We'll make note of that comment.
The next section is the new construction. It's page 24 on the red line. We support the goal of encouraging broader geographic distribution of the LIHTC resources. However, the absence of a LIHTC award within a certain zip code during the previous 4 years may not by itself accurately measure whether an area has recently benefited from the LIHTC investment. Some of Kansas zip codes vary in geography and population, so the criteria does not amount for the size or the type of the previous development, the population served, the units produced, whether the project was completed or housing, or if there's a current housing need. So we would encourage KHRC to consider limited exceptions where a previous award was not completed or served a material different population or housing needs. We'd also like to recommend the look back period to go from 4 years to 2 years for rural communities. We think that it is already difficult enough to secure in smaller communities, and a 4-year exclusion may unnecessarily limit a rural community's abilities to compete for additional development where it may be needed.
Thanks, Kelsey, for that comment.
I have more, friends.
Yeah, just
The
keep going.
next section, the next section is the new construction below market loans and support. It's on page 24 of the red line. KHA believes the 15 minimum loan term is generally reasonable, but questions whether a loan must satisfy every prescribed term to qualify as below market financing. The 1% interest rate ceiling may be particularly restrictive. For example, a rural local government may be able to provide a 2% 20-year loan through its economic development or a revolving loan program, but receive no QAP recognition for that meaningful local financial commitment. We would recommend retaining the existing requirements as a clear qualified standard while allowing applicants to demonstrate the alternative loan terms, providing a substantially equivalent below market financial benefit for the development. We will also be submitting all of this to you in
Thank you.
an email, but I wanted to note it publicly.
Yeah,
The
thank
next
you.
section is the selection criteria, new construction, proximity to amenities. It's again on red line, page 27. We support the allowing of applicants to submit 2 primary amenities in each category. We believe this provides a reasonable alternative to KHRC's determining what one submitted establishment does, not qualifying without providing any additional scoring. For example, the shopping is defined. KHA supports requiring applicants to identify a specific retail establishment or business, providing greater certainties regarding what qualifies. Discount retailers, some are. We would like clarification on what constitutes as stable, consistent offerings. Not all retailers are open 7 days a week, and so we would like to say maybe it's 6 days a week. Some of the smaller grocery stores might not be open 7 days. So we would just like to have some recommendation on that as well. Also, on some of the grocery stores, we believe too, I might be skipping ahead. Hold on. Okay, that's it in that section. I was skipping ahead of myself.
Thanks, Kelsey. Yep.
The next section is the selection of proximity to amenities secondary. It's page 28. We would also like to recommend that secondary amenities can be one in the same. A lot of times in some of the smaller rural communities, Walmart is the grocery store and the pharmacy and all other items. And that they have the ability to obtain everything. So we think that that should be counted and not have to go to 15 different locations just to get all of those points. The proposed rule could also produce an unintended scoring result where a project receives less credit for having several qualifying services available at one establishment 2 miles away for the same service that would be located 15 miles away. So we're recommending allowing a single establishment to qualify for more than one secondary amenity.
Thank you for that comment too.
The next section that we have a comment on is page 30 of the red line. It's the below market loans and supports. KHA supports recognizing local government contributions of real estate, but believes the proposed requirements may be unnecessarily restrictive to legitimate public-private development arrangements. The 5,000 limitation may not adequately account for closing, title, environment, survey, demolition, site preparation costs, while requiring governmental ownership by the primary applicant. Deadline may exclude property a government entity has committed to acquire and contribute but has not yet closed. So we would like to amend recognizing an enforceable government commitment to acquire and convey property for the development, and clarifying which acquisition and site preparation costs are included within the 5,000 limitation. I
Thank
do
you.
apologize. I only have a couple more.
That's fine. Thank you.
The next section is design requirements. It's on page 53 of the red line. KHA supports the goal of ensuring doable, low maintenance exterior materials when substantial exterior replacement occurs. However, the phrase "if exterior wall finishes are removed," it does not establish how long the removal triggers the new construction standards, whether all or most exterior finishes, a single wall, or a limited area requiring the repair. This is particularly relevant in rehab projects with existing vinyl siding. Serviceable existing siding should be permitted to remain the same with reasonable repair or limited replacement using comparable materials. We would recommend establishing an objective threshold or guidance defining which exterior finishes are substantially removed and replaced, allow reasonable repair and limited replacement of existing materials, and provide exceptions where compliance is impractical because of existing building conditions or would result in disproportionate costs.
Thank you.
Our next comment is just the post-award and compliance. It's just a technical comment and clarification on page 43 of the red line. KHA supports adding the declaration of restricted covenants regarding the replacement reserve guarantee, but KHA requests clarification regarding its scope, duration, enforcement, and whether or not the guarantee terminates or is reduced upon stabilization or satisfaction of specified performance requirements. We also recommend that the terminology and required documents and identified in section IXB5 and Appendix B may be consistent. One refers to as performance and repayment guarantee, while Appendix B separately identifies a performance guarantee and includes additional documents such as assignment of rents and leases and owner-developer eligibility certification.
Thank you.
Two more and then I will pass the floor to someone else. The page 54 on the red line, it's also design requirements. KHA supports requiring adequate dedication storage, but requests clarification whether or not the air conditioner means that the closet must be within the air conditioned building envelope or must itself receive air conditioning. KHA also requires flexibility in closet configuration, provided at least 16 square feet of functional, unobstructed storage is provided.
Thank you.
The next is the opportunity sites. It's page 63 of the red line. KHA supports the reconsideration of the current methodology of scoring opportunity sites and encourages KHRTC to establish a stakeholder working group to explore development of Kansas-specific opportunity index for potential use in future QAPs. The working group could establish national measures as well as approach developed by other state housing agencies and determine whether indicators best reflected opportunity and housing needs in Kansas. In developing any potential index, KHA believes particular attention should be given to differences between rural and metropolitan communities and whether projects should be evaluated within appropriate geographical peer groups. The working group should also consider whether different materials are appropriate for family and general occupancy versus senior housing. KHA believes the collaboration process would allow KHRC to develop an objective, transparent, and Kansas appropriate measure of opportunity while providing an opportunity to evaluate potential unintended consequences before incorporating the index into competitive QAP scoring. With that, I would like for you to thank you for KHA's time and give a strong consideration to our testimony. Uh, and like I said, we will be sending all of this through an email to at the end of this call.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kelsey. Thank you for your interest and all the feedback. Okay, this time I'd like to make note of a comment received into the chat from Bill Caton. Bill, we've received the comment. Thank you for posting. I see a comment from Kale Beam, who would like to speak on behalf of City of Topeka. Kale, are you available and able to unmute yourself?
I am. Thank you, Deanne. Really appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate KHRC for having this call. Just one comment. First of all, on behalf of the city of Topeka, we're strongly supportive of the LIHTC program and all the work that you guys do for affordable housing. Did have one comment regarding a provision in Section 7, the selection criteria on page 23 regarding rewarding up to 10 points for local waiver of fees. Our concern is just that when we waive those local development fees, the city still has costs associated with that project that don't disappear when we waive those fees for things like infrastructure and maintaining services to that area. We would just recommend that we replace that with some sort of other uh, incentive for meaningful local government support in the form of something like expedited permitting and plan reviews, infrastructure coordination, a formal letter of support, or other local incentives rather than just fee waivers. So that's our only comment, and we'll be submitting written comments as well.
Thank you, Kale. Thanks for participating. We've made note of the comment. Thank you. We have a request from Chris Lenz with Mesner Development who would like to speak. Chris, are you there and able to unmute yourself?
Yes, I am, and I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Both of these will kind of reiterate a little bit of what Kelsey had mentioned. For previous experience on page 21, Messner Development Company has developed in Kansas for 30 years this year. We've averaged, well, we've done 30 projects, actually 32 projects. All of our projects in Kansas have been done with a Chodo nonprofit or housing authority. In that instance, those Chodos, nonprofits, and housing authorities are the owners and general partners of those projects. We don't feel that we need to be the owner. We don't want to. We develop specifically to help the nonprofits, Chodos, and housing authorities gain affordable housing. We've done this in small communities, Scott City, Larned, to large communities, Kansas City, Topeka, and Lawrence. All of our projects have been in compliance. We've had really no issues with anything. The problem is, with that being said, Messner Development Company gets 0 experience points because we are not meeting the and, where we are the developer and owner GP. So I would like to at least have that looked at to where some sort of credence could be given to developers that partner with nonprofits, chodos that do projects in Kansas in order to get those points. Um, it just seems silly that we've done all this for 30 years and those points aren't included. Now I know we can list those companies as co-developers and all of that, and I mean that's fine. We can do that going forward, but that doesn't help us looking back. Um, and then I'd also point out in section 3A2, where you're talking about principles for a project, it specifically states that you encourage the partnership of uh, developers or nonprofits that want to develop housing that don't necessarily have the experience to partner and work with another developer. So it's kind of, you're encouraging that part, but we're not getting credit for it. Um, So I would just like that to be looked at and at least give some credit to those that are developers that are working with local Kansas nonprofits, chodos, and housing authorities. So that's all on that one.
Thank you, Chris.
Um, and on page 30, the donation of land on below market loans and support. The real estate is it's stated that the real estate needs to be owned by the local government as the primary application date. Typically, cities, municipalities do not want to own idle real estate. It's just not something that municipalities want to do as far as maintenance and that. So typically they will donate it to a local chodo or housing authority or development corporation with the implied intent that that property be developed for affordable housing. We've had a couple instances recently where cities have pretty much given land to chodos, nonprofits, housing authorities, development corporations for them to go and develop. And we've applied using that land, stating that this land has been donated, but that land does not receive the 10 points because it was not owned by the municipality prior to the preliminary application date. So I don't know if there's a way to maybe clarify that or at least open a window a little bit that says if that land was owned by the city and municipality and donated to the local nonprofit, um, Choto Housing Authority, with the intent to develop affordable housing, that that somehow should count somewhere for below market loans and support. I know there's developers that will try and get around that and have other nonprofits created just to kind of jump through the seek the points out in a QAP. So maybe just limited the donation to local chodos, local development corporations, local nonprofits, etc. That's all I have on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the suggestions and the comments. We'll make note. The open public comment period continues to be open. We'll continue to stay here for a few minutes. If anybody would like to make a comment in the chat or like to speak, please let us know in the chat. We'll continue to stay here, stay on for a few minutes, but also just want to let everybody know that written comments will be accepted through September 2nd, and they can be emailed to housingdevelopment@kshousingcorp.org. All of the QAP information and red line and dates continue to be published on our website. I have a comment from Doug Smith. Will comments be submitted and made available to the public? After the hearing and the comments close on September 2nd, all comments will be gathered and responded to accordingly. We'll continue to stay on for another couple minutes. Please feel free to use the chat to make a comment or speak. Once again, all these comments will be accepted through 5 p.m. on September 2nd, and they can be emailed to housingdevelopment@kshousingcorp.org. All the QAP information and comments will be posted to our website. We'll continue to stay on for another minute.
Hi, everyone. This is Gordon Rock with Merrick Development. Sorry, I've been in another meeting,
It's okay,
and I
Gordon, go
don't
ahead.
I don't have the red line in front of me, unfortunately. But I did want to make a comment about the accessibility consultant. I thought I remembered that that being a red line item, and I think we would recommend that the architect be responsible for any accessibility requirements. They're already going to be liable for those things, and an accessibility consultant, it's just an additional cost to be a burden to the project. So that's all I had on that.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you for your comment and suggestion.
Hey, this is Connor Menard with Hoppy Development. I was just
Hi,
gonna maybe
Connor.
add a little bit to some of the KJ comments. One on that below market loans and support. And again, we'll follow up with written from the Hoppy side. Was offering other potential loans that would get points for that to offer incentives for developers to, go after those loans that, maybe they're just a little bit above 1%. They're like 2, 3, 4. I know like certain agencies around you maybe not have that low of interest, but they have still do have low interest loans. So like the Kansas City Regional Housing Partnership, I know is having, coming out with some newer programs, and other agencies around the states, might not have that quite a bit of a low interest rate, but still have, a decent amount lower than what market rate is. So maybe considering having language that's a certain basis points below market, that would count. So there's, some incentives besides just, maybe making those deeper skewed rents pencil better to go after those loans. Otherwise, there's really, I guess, no incentives besides, making those ones penciled going ones that are just a little bit higher than the 1%. Um, and then just another comment would be I just kind of support what KJ, brought up as far as just a working group to kind of go over those opportunity sites scoring criteria. It just seems right now that some of the areas aren't reflecting quietly what they should probably properly score in that area. Um, so just we'll follow up with comments on that. Um, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Connor. Thanks for the feedback and the comments. We'll continue to stay on for another minute. If anybody has a comment they'd like to put in the chat or speak publicly, please go ahead. Okay, I'll start to close here. There is still time to make a comment if you choose to, but in closing, we just want to thank everybody who participated today and your interest in the 2027 QAP. I want to give a big shout out to our own housing development team, Terry, John, Scott, Maddie. Thank you for all the work that's gone into this to get us this far. For all that joined today, thank you for your time, participation, and feedback. Just want to give a last final reminder that written comments will be accepted through 5 p.m. on September 2nd. And you can email those to housingdevelopment@kshousingcorp.org. If there are no additional comments, we will close the public hearing at this time. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.